All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's market color session. How are we and how has the week been for us so far? Mr. Shady, it's been a while, sir. Timothy Dwana, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, sir. Okay, so let's just go straight to what this market has in store for us. As always, I always like to point this out for the sake of those of us who are just joining in for the first time. If you see the indicators so intertwined and you're wondering what it is you're looking at, this is one of our strategies on the trading floor. And I also understand that not everybody would have these indicators on their chart. So what you want to do is just take note of the price points and then add your own extra analysis to get extra confidence and take advantage of whatever opportunity we get to see. Now, looking back quickly at Tuesday's analysis, you'd see that AUD/USD sold exactly as we discussed. In fact, looking at the last point of interest, paying attention to even the last point of interest that was respected when price came, broke below, retested, and gave a confirmation, AUD/USD did about 40 pips. It did about 40 pips from that level. We made money off of this move. Let me see. Okay, 35 pips from the last point of interest. And then for the other point of interest, which was retested somewhere around here, is where we had over 40 pips target hit on this particular asset class. Remember I told you on Tuesday that I was in a trade on this asset class and I caught about 40 pips from the move. Okay, now that has passed. What are we now looking forward to during the course of today's analysis on this asset class AUD/USD? Let's zoom in. All of these lines you see are from Tuesday's analysis. You see that we even drew, there's a point of interest here, which price is currently reacting off of. But I'm going to go ahead and just delete everything from Tuesday so we can pay attention. And those who did not join on Tuesday can follow along without being confused. So I'm looking at AUD/USD on the H4 time frame. And remember, the first thing we always want to look out for is to see if the new sunshine has been printed, so we know if the trend is currently wearing out. So looking at this now, price predominantly major structure, heavily to the upside, minor structure gradually breaking to the downside, but it's been buying from here, doing this, but it hasn't given us a new sunshine to know that this move we're seeing is coming to an end. But regardless of sunshine, you see the reactions. Now, since H4 is not giving a clear picture as I prefer, we'll go to H1 to gather more data. Now, on H1, you see that sunshine here was printed and price sold significantly, right? Okay. Now, price is in some sort of, I don't want to say a range, but all indicators are currently intertwined. So I'm still going to go ahead and mark out what I would ideally to see what price does at those zones, which is to mark out the 3 different indicators we have on H1, which basically serve as our point of interest. Now, price has violated points of interest 1. It has also violated points of interest 2. Zooming in now, price has not traded into this level. So having this in mind, you know, this AUD/USD sold with so much gap. And what happens when the market sells so much, leaving inefficiencies? Eventually, the market wants to go and refill that imbalance that was left in the process of the market moving with so much speed. So it is possible that we see a temporal buy for it to come and fill up the liquidity, if it's 50% or the entire thing, before we see a continued move downward. Now, I'm going to quickly go to M5 so that I will even have more data. Just pay attention to the ones I draw into today's price movement. All of these were from Tuesday. So for today, I am marking out the levels. Sorry about that. Marking out the levels into today's price movement. Now look at this. The highest high of yesterday is one of our POI. And it's almost in confluence with one of the points of interest we marked out on H1, which is the horizontal line you are looking at, right? I'll go ahead and mark out yesterday as well. And then mark out day before yesterday's high and day before yesterday's low. Okay, so I have now marked out these levels. Why am I marking them out? What am I hoping would happen? Now that I've marked out these zones, I want to see if AUD is able to break through not just this horizontal line on the H1, but if it is able to break through even the last support level or what could have served as support when price turns into the zone, then to be safe to say we're seeing even more sales of AUD. There will be more sell-offs of this asset class if price is able to break through those different points of interest that ought to ideally serve as support. Now, before price even breaks through those levels, let's go back to M5. It is possible we see a temporal buy into this level. So we'll be seeing a temporal buy of AUD into 0.65905, and then we'll now see either it is going to start breaking upward. You know, we always say it's either a trend reversal or a trend retracement or a total reversal. So we'll be watching to see what it does. But I'm thinking this is what would happen. We'll see a temporal buy somewhere in here, and then we see a continuous sell of AUD. Now looking at NZUSD from the H4 time frame as well. The same bias we had on AU is what we had on NU, right? And price is respecting that. So if you still zoom out, you see that although the major structure looks to be like moving to the upside, but minor structure, this has broken so many structure points, change of character, confirmatory break of structures to the downside. Hence why I think this guy is predominantly in a downward move, right? Looking at H1 now, ANU is sort of different and more clearer than what we had on AUD. So this is still a valid point of interest. I'm just going to go ahead and mark out one. I'm only going to put one POI here because these two indicators tally. They happen to be in the same place. Adjust this a little. So price is already reacting from what would have been a POI if we had come to this chart early on. You see that from this zone to what price has done is about 39 pips. You know, NU and AU are not the fastest asset classes. So this is a significant move that the market has done today. It's quite significant for an asset class like NZUSD. So price is already reacting off of, this is already playing out for this guy. And if we were to see a temporal buy for price to come back in here, because institutions would always want to retrace price to a good enough zone before they continue to sell. So if we even see any buy, it would be that price is coming to take out all of these liquidities residing here. There's a bunch of liquidity residing around this zone, and this is a resistance level. So we could see a temporal buy in here, sweep all of this, and a sell continuation. But for now, if we were early on these charts, we would have gotten our daily bread. So M5 now, the same thing I did on AU, very repetitive. Mark out yesterday's high and low. Yesterday's high, day before yesterday's high, marked out. And then day before yesterday's low. Okay, so price is now doing this. This is where NZUSD is selling. So this will be our first take profit level, somewhere around here. Let me get the exact price points. 0.57368 is where NZUSD is likely to sell into, because that's where we have our next support level on the M5. So this is where I'm thinking this guy would. And if price sells into this zone and takes out this level, bearing in mind, let's go to each one and see if we have any other thing. No, so we don't have any other thing that could serve, but based on the data we're currently looking at, there's nothing that could stand in its way. Then we may see a continuous sell of NZD USD. And then finally for USD card, page 4. Remember we said we're looking at USD card buying from this point of interest is where this guy has been for a while. We understand why. Look at all of that choppiness, right? So we're looking at this structure. This sunshine was printed. We expected the temporal sell into a POI, which is being respected. Let's go to H1. These are our points of interest. So initial POIs as at Tuesday, but that's the thing with indicators. They've now shifted a tiny bit, right? So I'm going to go ahead and adjust that into what I'm looking for today. So price is still in some sort of a range on USD card, or range to the upside. So mark out M5. So yes, because of time, we won't be able to touch much on fundamentals, but I recommend going to platforms like Forex Live to see more data on fundamentals. They would also add as extra confluence in your trading decision. Okay, so price not fully tap into what would have been a support before this buy happened. It got close, so there's a possibility that this guy might have been missed because he didn't fully tap into that level. But you now see that price is currently buying. If price takes out this level, very similar, it's the same process you're doing on different asset classes. If price takes out these zones, they'll be seeing a continuous buy of USD card. Except we now have a fundamental news release that comes and does otherwise on the dollar. So if you have a news release on the dollar, of course, dollar correlated pairs will be affected. So if you have any questions on these asset classes I just looked at, let me know. If not, we'll simply just move into the next half, which is to touch on indices and a bit on fundamentals as well. All right, we'll go on a very short break. Thank you so much. All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Shea, where have you been? I don't think I've seen you like 2 weeks here. Okay, we'll go on a very short break. Please do not go anywhere. We'll be back in less than 1 minute. Cheers. And God bless. All of us did that vote. All right, bye everyone.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second part of this market color session. How are we doing today? Hope we're good, hope we're fine. Quickly, we'll be looking at the US markets, SPT's markets, S&P 500, US 30, NAS 100. Seeing how those markets are behaving. Quite interesting. So far, so good. We've seen a massive sell across board. Not really across board, but some of the asset class. All right. Okay, let's look at this together. US 30, let's start with US 30. On US 30, we said we're very much very much bullish, right? In the market, we're very much bullish. However, we had a retracement last week. This was a break of structure, not last week, this week, a break of structure above here, and then we say price is going to retrace a bit into some levels from which will now continue its movement to the upside, right? So that being said, let's go to the 1 hour, not 1 hour, 4 hour time frame. We had a whole lot of drama happening on that time frame recently. So price having a failure swing around here. We've broken structure to the upside, right? But then we've retraced a bit, and then this next retracement didn't break this new high that we had. So this is like a failure swing, right? That might in a way send price to the downside. But then on the 1 hour time frame, that was on Tuesday, we had a very, very good setup, right? We had a very good setup. We wanted to buy from this zone. And then what happened? That was on Friday, price stopped us out. And then this became a mitigation block. Why? Because this next candlestick closed strongly above, right? And then this became like a mitigation block for us. This became like a mitigation block for us. And I mentioned very carefully that provided price doesn't break this to the lower time frame, to the downside, sorry, we wouldn't see, price being bearish, right? But then we won't look for bearish setup. But then also on Tuesday, we had like two setup. Price actually really rallied to the upside. But then we had this 30 minutes sell we also were looking at. But then I stated very clearly that I don't want to be caught in the middle of a bullish trend, right? I don't want to be caught in the middle of a bullish trend such that we enter from here now and then price, sells a bit and then continue to rally to the upside. Apparently, the market really sold off massively from that zone. Everything was pointing to the sell, no doubt you saw it, but then personally, I didn't take this because I don't want to be caught in all of the drama. I've traded US 30 long enough to know that anything can happen, right? If you are very, very insistent on taking a sell in a bullish market, you can be caught off guard and end up, just taking unnecessary loss or avoidable loss. So, but then price tapped into this other block on 30 minutes, like we marked out, and then use this as an inducement. And then what happened? We saw that drop to the downside, which is really interesting, right? However, inside all of this drama, the buy setup is still valid, the sell setup is still valid, because by the time you come to 1 hour time frame, all of this market is just ranging. I think this range is in anticipation of tomorrow's NFP that is coming out. So I believe with NFP, there will be enough momentum to really push and drive this market to the upside, right? Yeah, that's if it comes out very positive, right? We will see a bullish move across board to the upside. But then if the opposite is the case, then probably we're ready for a proper sell to the downside. But I doubt if we would see that sell happening, because from seasonality too, right? Seasonality tendency on US 30, October usually is a month where we see a rally into the next year. October, November, December, most time they rally into the next year. Of course, 2026, I expect US 30 to be overall neutral in sense of all this high that's been made in 2025, we'll begin to see it retrace a bit, right, in 2026, because that is post-election. Post-election year, that's 2 years after election. So if you're using election theory cycle, right? All right. So that being said, this morning, I'm still looking at this guy, right? I still believe this market should push, right? Because for this level holding this low, that it's still valid, it's an indication for me that price might as well still continue its movement in the upside. I wish this sell has broken this low, then we can have a very valid point to say, okay, we've broken structure properly and we can begin to scout for minor sales in the market. All right. But then even at that price hasn't broken this low here, we are still very, very much in the buy side of things. Let me look at 30 minutes. Okay. A very good way to enter this market this morning for me will be price breaking this mini structure. Okay. I need to see if there's something we can look at on the lower time frame. Okay. Price have broken all of this, broken structure to the lower time frame. This is a very, very, very interesting trade we have in here. Okay, I'm seeing a fair value gap here this morning. I have to do a whole lot of, okay. Can use this fair value gap, or want to look for a more inclusive entry, I can combine all of this together with this zone, and then price taps into it. And then my first take profits will be this hour here, right? Of course, by the time you stretch it to the 1 hour time frame, again, first take profits will be ultimately where? First take profits will be here, this first zone. And then second one will be where? And ultimately, we are waiting for price to come and clear this guy over here. Waiting for price to come and clear this guy over here. That's if this zone holds, right? Because everything, price has really, in a way, mitigated all areas of interest here. No fair value gap or other block or any other, form of confluence is remaining here that's not been mitigated. All the fair value gaps and other block have been mitigated fully. All right, so that being said, I'll just be watching this market this morning to see how it goes, and hopefully we can take trades from this zone and ride it to the upside. All right, moving quickly to US 100 before S&P 500. Although I think I have some things on S&P 500. US 100 is very, very much bullish. And then, one of the drivers of US 100 is the stock, right? It's the tech stock. So we've been seeing a lot of innovations with, AI boom and everything. So tech stock is really rallying to the upside. Like I mentioned on Tuesday, NVIDIA now. Tesla report came out really, really interesting, right? They sold lots of cars beyond even imagination. So that pushed their share price to the upside. We had a deal, OpenAI with AMD within the week. So we can see AI stocks are really, really appreciating. Of course, some people will say it's a bubble. We can never tell, right? Because people shouting that it's a bubble, have not reduced their volume yet. NVIDIA is really, really, really pushing to the upside. All right. So people have been saying NVIDIA has been overvalued since 2024, right? In 2024, this is 2025. NVIDIA is still, breaking barriers. So nobody can really say or tell if it's a bubble or not until we see the end of it. All right. So on the daily time frame, we are very, very much bullish on US 100. And now I'm seeing something very interesting here. We have this area that's not been mitigated, although it's in a premium zone, right? I wish this was around here. That makes sense, because by the time you break structure here, is the next level you have, right? But then coming to the 4-hour time frame, let's see if there's something tangible we can get there. All right. We have some areas that have not been mitigated yet. Sorry. Now this 4-hour POI have not been mitigated. But then just above the 4-hour POI, we have a breaker block. We have a breaker block also. Although it looks as though price dug into this breaker block before it moved. But this is what I'll be looking out for on US 100 actually. And of course, this other one here. There's an hidden other block here. And to believe. Okay, it has been tested in a way. But then these two areas are what I'll be looking out for. If for any reason, now, the reason I want to take this from a premium level is if we continue seeing positive reviews, positive reports about, tech companies, right? Meta and the rest, we keep seeing positive reports about them. I don't believe US 100 is going to retrace that much. It's just going to look for the nearest confluence or point of interest and then continue its journey from there, right? I've seen that happen with equities market, right? They don't necessarily have to be chased into discount and premium zone. before they move. So sometimes the fundamental might be very strong, right? And that could be a driver. Imagine you waiting for retracement on gold. You might just wait forever because the driver is the main thing driving that market is fundamental, right? So on US 100, I'll just be looking out for these zones, these two zones, right? See how market retrace. Of course, one of the things I'll do is to scale down to 1 minute time frame so that even if there's any stop out, I have multiple stop out. I know the one that will now move is going to cover for all of the previous losses that might have been, gotten. So this is a breaker block I'm waiting for to see how price reacts from this zone. And if for any reason price doesn't kick off from this zone, this under other block has not been mitigated. So this is a very valid point for us to look at in terms of taking buys from the market. Tomorrow is Friday. I believe we should see some form of either one directional movement tomorrow or just a spike up and down. Is the usual drama that happens when everything is overpriced, right? Just a spike, or market just tap into certain levels and then face one direction. So these are the areas of interest. Me personally, I'll be looking at this week, right? For the rest of the week, that's tomorrow and then into Monday. This zone looks very valid too on the 1 hour time frame. You can see it. A fresh level that's not been mitigated before. This is also a breaker block that there's no much rejection before price violates it. So makes it still valid, very, very much valid. All right. As for intraday trade this morning, there's really nothing for me in terms of intraday trade on US 100. No, I don't have any trade setup for that. On S&P 500, something really interesting happened. Was it on S&P or US 100 now? I think it's S&P 500. Trying to see which time frame it happened. Okay. Because of the chart I'm using, or I use most time, I saw an order block on my own US S&P 500 chart, right? I saw an order block that the price tapped into. Probably I'll just look at it again and then check the broker that gave me that chart markup, right? Another block was sitting pretty well around this zone. I'm trying to locate which of them it is. That trade was very clean. Okay, I'll look for it and then probably share it later. All right, a perfect box pattern that played out on I think it's S&P 500. Perfect box pattern that played out. Really, everything was on point, in check. Price tapped into a fair value gap, other block, and then move. I think it's one of these broker. I'll check it again and then we'll look into it together. But then coming back to where we are price on daily time frame, we are bullish, right? We are bullish on daily time frame. And also we have this other block that's been printed on the daily time frame. Though this kind of other block, I really don't like where it's sitting at, but then, I mean, we don't control the market. Price is beginning to dig into it, which is fine. But then on the 4 hour time frame, let's look if there are things we can see from the other block in terms of, okay, this breaker block has been mitigated already. Price dug into it and then it's pushing to the upside. So I not necessarily be solid again. We have a fair value gap that has been tested once, but then still, yeah, it has been tested 50%. This is the fair value gap, and it has been tested above 50%. So it makes sense to say price, okay, up to 50%. Not necessarily came, and let me measure it properly. Okay, almost. So it's safe to say this is no longer valid again, this fair value gap, right? Because price really dug into it and then we saw that push to the upside. So for US 500, that's S&P 500, we'll just be very, very patient to see if the order, I want to see NFP, right? The reaction of NFP, how market is going to react to NFP news, either positive or negative. Let's see the numbers, let them be out, and then we can now begin to make more informed decision in the market. because we've been having a lot of drama recently. I want to see what NFP comes or looks like, and then we can now say, okay, yeah, taking a position in the market very soon. Of course, I'm seeing something very interesting here, but then I wouldn't take any chance until I see NFP news or NFP release. That will now give me confidence to either want to buy or want to sell in this market. All right. So for today, we don't really have a trade in terms of intraday play. No, we don't have that. It's just looking at the market and trying to, just look at general analysis of the market rather than trying to look for, trade setup this morning. All right, it's a good place to ask a question this morning. Anna, Abi, AB, forgive me if I didn't get that pronunciation correctly. AB and James, Mr. Oni, Pips don't lie. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you all. You have any question this morning or any contribution so that we can all learn together and see how it's going? Mr. Oni, Pips don't lie, James, Abby, Arna. Do you have any question? Okay, good morning. First time joining. Wow. Bubble, okay. I also believe it's a bubble. Oh, all right, beautiful, beautiful. The bubble might burst in 2027. All right, yeah. For me, right, I want to believe it's a bubble, but then the use case of OpenAI is getting really, really interesting, right? Now, before it used to be something that you can just, just written text message and the rest, combine this for me, create this for me. But now the use case is getting really deeper. A lot of people are integrating it to even research videos. Now, of course, me in Nigeria, I'm able to access it. Sora is getting really, really more advanced, right? The line between AI generated video, especially on Sora, and even real video is getting really blurry. Of course, if you are really advanced, you can spot the difference almost immediately, but then it's gradually developing. So I'm thinking to myself, can this be a bubble, or might not necessarily be a bubble, but then it's not there yet. That place you are placing it, that AI is going to just disrupt everything, like change it. I mean, because now it's changing how people even code, right? It's changing how people code. You have to be a good coder to actually say, okay, you want to use AI to code, actually. You have to be a good coder for you to know what is a good code in the first place, right? But I'm saying it's doing a whole lot of shift and how people operate businesses. So I'm thinking to myself, is it another .com bubble or something somewhere is going to happen and then eventually change the way we approach life? But we can never tell. I mean, never been here before. We'll just be looking at how it's going and then try to play with it. For me, I'm invested in companies that are building the structure. They're building the backbone, right? Rather than trying to, like the likes of NVIDIA, AMD now, right? I wish OpenAI was publicly listed, but then it's a private company. Almost all the AI firms are private, almost all. XAI, private. This DeepSeek guy that shouted recently, they were everywhere at the beginning of the year, everybody's quiet. OpenAI should list soon. I hope so. I really hope so. Right? I really hope so. If they do, then you can plug into it. And then, of course, not at the, what's it called now? Opening price. Nah, I'll wait for all the bubble to die down first before I now enter the market. I wait for the bubble to die down first. All right. Thank you so much for joining this morning, everyone. Thank you once again. We see it by 2 p.m. in the afternoon for the New York session. Hopefully something will have happened in the market and we can now, either realign our position or just stick with our bias. All right. I wish you a profitable trading, everyone. Cheers and God bless. Thank you.